Continue this discussion now. Dutch Merrick is a prop master, armorer, and former president of the Hollywood Craftpersons Union and is joining us live tonight. Dutch, thank you for your time. Alec Baldwin said he did not pull the trigger. That was really the overarching major development in this interview tonight. My question for you as an armorer with your experience, can a gun malfunction and fire without a trigger being pulled?
Well, the way that gun is designed is to cock the hammer, and then the next step is to pull the trigger. It's a very simple mechanism. It's 150 years old. When he said in the interview that he pulled the hammer back and then let go of it and it fired, is he implying that there was a mechanical problem with the gun, that when he pulled the hammer back, as usual, it didn't stay back? That's the only thing that I can sort of try and read into that. But that hammer is designed to function. When you pull it back, it catches, and then it's only supposed to go forward by pulling the trigger. And that's if the gun is working the way it was designed. This is a 150-year-old design that it's a modern version of that, what they call a reproduction. So that gun, in theory, should have been functioning properly if it was on a movie set.
Have you ever heard of a gun firing a shot when a trigger wasn't pulled?
A very rare circumstance. I've heard of a gun that had a trigger malfunction that was cocked and dropped or hit very, very hard, and it might go off. But it's extremely rare circumstances that a gun can be fired without a finger actually pulling the trigger, which is designed to make it fire.
We'll let investigators handle that. I want to play a portion of the interview for you, Dutch. This is when Alec is talking about the armorer, Hannah. Let's listen.
If I'm holding the gun and they say cut, I then hand the gun to Halls if she's not there.
Yeah, why Halls, not Hannah? Some people have said that only the armorer should be handling it.
That's inaccurate. Meaning in the protocols of the business, meaning Hannah would to hand me the gun 99% of the time. But when we would say cut, if Hannah was away from the set, I would hand Halls the gun.
So that leads you to believe that Hannah was not there, so he handed Halls the gun. Is there ever a scenario when a gun is being used on a set that the armorer is not there and directly involved in the safety of the firearm?
Well, understand that there's a relationship between the armorer and the actor, and nobody should come between them. The armorer will show the gun as being safe or unloaded or loaded, and the first assistant director can oversee that as a safety monitor, but they would never get in between that handoff of a gun going to an actor or coming from an actor. I did read in the affidavit that Halls handed the gun to Alec Baldwin at the beginning of that sequence, which is troublesome. Why was the first assistant director handling the guns at all? And I read also in an affidavit that the armorer was told she had to be out of that set, outside that church. They're at maybe a maximum capacity, which any armorer would stay with the gun no matter what and say, hey, if that gun's going in on that set and going into the actor's hands, I will be next to it and I will oversee that. I'm not going to hand it off to a first assistant director to then be there to block the scene and tell the actor where it's safe and remind them how to shoot the gun and tell them it's cold. It's not their job. It's the armorer's job.
And that is clear on all sets you have ever worked on. Pointing a gun at a person. Alec Baldwin got into this and he said, I did exactly what I've always done, even if the gun is cold. The question is, he said that the cinematographer, Helena Hutchins, was telling him to point the gun towards her because she was trying to get a certain angle. What do you say?
Well, there's a balance that happens between the cinematographer or director and the armorer and actor. We understand that they're trying to get the shot that most conveys the story and most sells what emotion we're trying to create. Often a director will ask an actor to point a gun in a direction that's not safe. So the actor or the armorer will intervene and say, hey, I can't point that direction. There's people there. So does that mean we change the camera angle or we move the people from that space? But the gun is never supposed to be pointed at a human being. If that gun was going to be pointed at the camera and fired, the camera would be covered in blankets and protected and have plexiglass in front of it to protect from any material that might come out, and there would be nobody at the camera. So it's very unusual for him to be pointing at a group of people.
The other thing he said before I let you go, Dutch, he said, I assumed the gun was empty. Based on what I know about firearms, you always assume the gun is loaded, right?
Rule number one, assume the gun is always loaded. You are absolutely right. And on that particular revolver, it's fairly clear to see from the side of the gun, you can see the brass of the cartridges behind the cylinder. So you can see something is in there. And that should be a clue to say, hey, let's check if that's a dummy round or an empty round or something else, something worse in this case.
The beginning of a lot of questions that have yet to be answered. Dutch Merrick, as always, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.